Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. Now I want to welcome you to a very special tag-on edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down, man. We are adding on to the Spider-Man Far From Home spoiler review, the lengthy spoiler review that I did. You can see all of it right there. There are chapter markers, so you can jump around. It's about an hour worth of conversation. There was so much to talk about, and so much of what we had to talk about had to deal with Mr. Mysterio himself, Quentin Beck, played, of course, by the wonderful, the brilliant Jake Gyllenhaal. Look, it's no surprise at this point that this is maybe my favorite Marvel villain to date, one of my favorite adaptations of anything Marvel has done, and maybe one of my all-time favorite Marvel characters. What they do with Mysterio in this movie and how Jake Gyllenhaal plays it, it's just so brilliant. It's so classic Mysterio, man, to build this massive first act where you fight these two elemental monsters with Spider-Man. You're the good guy. Earn Spider-Man's trust. Become his buddy, his confidant, someone that he's starting to look up to trick him into giving you Tony Stark tech in glasses named Edith, standing for Even Dead, I'm the Hero. So that you can create these massive illusions to become the greatest superhero ever, so that people will listen to you. Like, that is the deep-rooted deep all the way down there. He's just mad that, like, you hear the line, like, hey, don't be afraid to say anything when you're the smartest person in the room. People listen to that. And then, really, Tony never listened, so people, even when you are the smartest guy in the room, people don't listen to you. Well, they'll listen to me when I'm done. Genius stuff. But the thing that impressed me the most was how much comic accurate stuff there is in this movie involving Mysterio. So much, though, that after the movie, I felt it. Like, just watching it, I was like, just seeing the visuals and the story, I was like, God, man, this feels so much like Mysterio. This might be the best iteration of Mysterio we've ever gotten. You know, like, the visuals, they just seem like things I've seen before. Let me go back. And I went back and reread like the first 10 appearances of Mysterio, and holy cow, is it eye-opening. I went back and rewatched the 1994 animated series and the episodes that Mysterio popped up in between 94 and 96 in those first 4 seasons. And wow, dude, like, I highly, highly suggest going back, checking out the animated series, specifically just the Mysterio episodes, and you can rent them on Amazon, and also going back and rereading the comics. You can find them online all over the place. Because what you read, you just sit there and go, wow. I mean, it's one thing to visually nail Mysterio, right? To give us the fishbowl, to give us the big purple cape, to give us the scaled kind of, green undergarment, to give us the clasps with the eyes, and then to take all that and adapt it in a way where, like, Mysterio was specifically pulling from Avengers, right? Like, we're at a point in life where people will believe anything. We're at a point in life where it's like, if you just give them something that looks real, they'll buy it. So he pulls from the credits, the animated credit sequences. You see, like, he circles like parts of Thor's costume and stuff with Doctor Strange, and presents all this stuff where it just visually looks and feels like Mysterio, but also looks and feels like something that would be in this world if you were Mysterio, pretending to be a superhero. So I loved that stuff. But then there's so many nods, and some of these things I mentioned in my spoiler review, but I'm going to tell you exactly where you can find these things. And if you go to Amazing Spider-Man number 13, the first appearance of Mysterio, he basically taunts Spider-Man into fighting him on a bridge in New York. And it's the first place that they ever fight. It's on top of this bridge, and he's already using, his illusion tech, and he makes Spider-Man fall off. And to have the final showdown in Far From Home be on a bridge, albeit not in New York, but in London at the Tower Bridge, I just thought it was so clever, right? Like, just one of those things where it's like, hey, we know the first time Mysterio and Spider-Man threw down, it was on a bridge. Let's make the biggest, best sequence of action on a bridge. I loved that. And again, like, pulling right from number 13. Then even inside the illusions, this is where you get a lot of the deep cut comic stuff. There are so many references to things. For instance, when Pete is starting to get bombarded by stuff and he swings and he punches and he ends up punching right through the hologram and hitting a wall, or it's actually just a column, but he hits a stone column with his hand, pulled right out of Amazing Spider-Man number 141, when the fake Mysterio is not Quentin Beck at this point. What we find out is that Mysterio is actually Daniel Burkhart in that issue, but the thing that he plays with a lot in that is this hologram tech that he actually attaches to Spider-Man's suit. So Spider-Man is seeing his rogues gallery constantly come at him, and at one point he's trying to fight them all off as they come through this brick wall. And when he finally stops, his hands are torched because he's been punching a wall for a long time, thinking that it was real. So the illusion tricked him into punching a wall. Boom. In the movie, tricks him into punching a concrete column. Not quite a wall, but very similar. So you can see the cut there to the number 141. Then, as I also mentioned in my spoiler, when he gets hit by the train, that's actually not so much a comic deep cut as much as an animated series. 1994. One of the things that he does, he's throwing all these different illusions out at Pete. That one of them is a train, and Spider-Man like flinches, and the train goes through him and disappears as the illusion wears off. So to see that, another real nice deep cut that's not this time comic oriented, but if you're all things Spidey, animated series oriented. I thought that was really cool, and it's smart, right? Because there are a lot of people who don't read the comics that may have watched the cartoon show or things, just to see images that we've seen in different mediums being applied here was so creative. And another thing is the use of holograms. Obviously, we knew that we were going to get hologram tech most likely if we were going to play with Mysterio. And what's cool is the first time that Mysterio showed up in the cartoon, obviously in the 90s, you're talking 30 plus years after Mysterio showed up in the comics, hologram technology is a thing. It's used in the comics, and to see it visually used in the cartoon kind of gave a feel to what we see in the movie. So again, really, really nice nod. Then, of course, in the finale, when Pete needs to get through all the drones that cloak themselves and then turn into an illusion, he closes his eyes and bounces and just uses his Spidey sense to know where everything is, to avoid bullets, and to take out all the drones. This, again, is another deep cut Spidey moment where in Amazing Spider-Man number 198, Pete is being bombarded with all different kinds of illusions, and they feel so real that the only way he can be sure, right? Like when Tiger jumps at him, he's like, I don't know if it's real or not, but I gotta hope that it's fake because I don't know what else to do. He webs his eyes up so that he can't see and uses his Spidey senses. Now here, it's Spidey senses. In the movie, it's referred to as Peter Tingle by Aunt May, and then again as by Happy, and eventually even by Pete at the end. He's like, come on, Peter Tingle, don't fail me now. I love that. So funny. It's got like innuendos to it, so it makes it uncomfortable, especially when May says it, and that stuff is so awkward and wonderful. But I love seeing that. Then, of course, there's the many Spider-Man reflections in that first illusion. At one point, Mysterio just starts throwing all of these pieces of glass down and kind of traps Peter, and when he looks up, Spider-Man is reflected in all these mirrors, and then they come out and they start beating him up and then disappear because it's an illusion. That, of course, is something that Mysterio's done multiple times, but the first time we ever saw him use mirrors was in Amazing Spider-Man number 66, where Mysterio is so clever in the comics, man. Like, he lures Spider-Man to a place, and when Spider-Man comes in, he sees a miniature replica version of one of the theme parks. It looks like an amusement park, probably something like Coney Island. And then he gets knocked out by Mysterio, and when he wakes up, Mysterio is massive, and he's in the replica version. He's shrunk him down. This is what the thing that, he was worried that, like, whatever this tech was that Mysterio had, that something bad would happen. That's what it is. He gets shrunk into it. Obviously, this is a massive illusion. He knocks him out and then puts him into the park, which is closed down, and then uses the illusion to build the massive Mysterio. But in there, one of the places that he gets trapped is in the Hall of Mirrors, and the Hall of Mirrors start to compress on him. And although they don't do what they do in the movie, that sense of claustrophobia kind of comes in when you're reading the comic, and then when you see the actual Spider-Man come out and just pile on Spidey, that sense of claustrophobia. Really, really nice stuff coming right out of number 66, which we can stay in number 66, because in there, we also, saw Giant Mysterio, like I said, at the park, and in those illusions, we do finally see a Giant Mysterio, and in that, he takes the helmet off and goes to hand it to Peter, which is a different deep cut, where the first time we ever saw that iconic imagery of him taking the helmet off was in Spider-Man number 142, the follow-up to 141, where we find out that Burkhart has taken all the tech after, Quentin Beck realized he was going to die, left all of this to this guy. He takes it, and the new fishbowl has a camera on the back so that it would make his head disappear, so he could take the head off and make it seem like he was a ghost. The thing that they're playing into is that Peter finds out that Quentin Beck's dead. Spider-Man knows this. Mysterio's trying to force that upon him. So again, we're cutting back to, again, in those 1963 runs, number 142, where we get to see that iconic image of the helmet coming off. So love getting to see that in the movie itself. And then also, one of the more iconic images is that shot of all the different Mysterios in front of Peter on the bridge. And he's like, which one is which? You don't know. Given the very, very same option in Amazing Spider-Man number 198, where we see the multiple Mysterios for the first time, and they're all holding a gun, and Peter's like, I don't know which one to take out. I'm just going to hope I get it right. And kind of has to fight him that way. So all of these deep cut comic things, just pulling from that original run of Mysterio. Awesome to see them in there, and hopefully enlightening to have them laid out to you so you can go back and look at these specific issues. And it goes all the way up to that post-credit sequence, which again has deep cut comic ties. One of the things that we've seen Quentin Beck do multiple times in the movie Spider-Man Far From Home, and multiple times in the comics, is fake his own death. He does it twice in the movie, and right away after his second appearance, he goes to prison for the second time, and he dies. That's when Burkhart kind of takes over, but in reality, he's not dead. His death is revealed in issue number 141, but later on, as we approach Spider-Man 200, Mysterio comes back for 198, 199, and 200 in this really intricate illusion that involves the original guy who killed Ben Parker, Pete's uncle, and a mysterious treasure that's being hidden in the Parker estate. Mysterio kind of uses him to manipulate to try to find out where this is. And while all that's going on, though, eventually it's revealed as to what Quentin's master plan was. He faked his death to then be able to come back later, but to create this massive illusion around Aunt May where he was Dr. Ludwig Reinhardt. And I'm telling you, if Reinhardt pops up anywhere in the cinematic universe, it's going to confirm that Mysterio is again playing Spider-Man for a fool and tricking us all with yet another illusion in faking his own death in the movies. It would be stupid not to reprise Jake Gyllenhaal and not bring him back, so I can't imagine it. And like I said, when you watch that post-credit where he reveals it's Peter Parker and Peter was responsible for his death, and kind of framing him, which is another reference to, of course, Amazing Spider-Man number 13. Mysterio framed Spider-Man at the very beginning of that issue. When was he going to do it? He either did it after the fight with Peter, in which case he wouldn't have been dead because he would have had to do it after, or he did it beforehand, which means he planned to die in front of Peter so that he could release this footage and frame him. So when you take all that into account, you take the deep cuts that the movie just lays everywhere around the Mysterio character, it would make so much sense that by the third time Mysterio came around in the comics, he had already faked his death. It would be genius. I wouldn't be shocked if we had an imposter pop up at some point, and then Quentin really gets revealed. And the other thing, too, that I love in there is that, much like in Amazing Spider-Man number 13, J. Jonah Jameson supports Mysterio as a hero. And in that post-credit, we see J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson supporting Mysterio as a hero and Spider-Man as a villain. So when you get all those deep-cut ties and they hit all of the different issues that actually reference things like his deaths, other things from those issues tying into the movie, I think it just points to the fact that it's all fake, and that one day we will see Jake Gyllenhaal again. Remember, Dr. Ludwig Reinhardt. Keep your eyes and ears open for that name. So, like I said, man, the Mysterio stuff in this movie is just absolutely genius, and the deep cut comic ties to so many of the things that we see on screen, whether it be just images, how he looked, or different thematical elements that came right out of the comics. It was just really, really cool, and why I think Mysterio might be one of the best comic adapted and accurate characters ever in the cinematic universe. Certainly true for the villains. So there you go, man. Those are all of my revealing thoughts as to which comic books influenced this version and maybe the best version of Mysterio. So now I want to know what you're thinking, man. Are you going to go back, check out all the comics and reread them? Have you reread them after seeing the spoiler review? What do you think? Did you pick up on any deep cut ties that I missed? Do you think a lot of these can point the way to the fact that Mysterio is indeed tricking us again by the end of the movie? Everything you're thinking and what you found interesting in where maybe some of these things were coming from. I'm telling you, Kevin Feige loves the comics so much. Anytime you think you can tie something to the comics, you're most likely tying it to the comics in some way, shape, or form. So many influential things. Everything you're thinking about those goes down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the old C-Man all summer long. Anytime we're talking Spidey, see if Quentin comes back, you got to go hit that subscribe and then the little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. The C-Man Cinema Sit Down. I'm the C-Man. I'm signing off. Pizza. Well, I'll be. You guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. C-Man's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the C-Man goodies, join the Cinema Sit Down squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.